great to have you here.
Well, first of all, Mikhail, thank you. I mean, it's such an honor to receive this award from you and from your organization. So thank you so much.
If you look at the last 10 years, where you were the Secretary General, of course, of Factors Chain International of FCI, I mean that in itself is a role where you have to build bridges, have to build relationships, and push
Yes.
the factoring industry forward for sure. But what were some of the main challenges for you?
Just remember 2012, what was happening. We were just in a sense, slowly exiting this huge global recession as a result of
Yeah,
the subprime mortgage crisis, and a lot of the FCI members were affected. You remember Fortis
yeah,
and RBS and GE Capital, some of the old names, including CIT, my employer. They went through a
yeah.
very difficult time, a restructuring. For me, what I learned from that was the two things. One, how important trust is for a client, a company earning its, developing business together with a factor, together with a bank that's offering various forms of invoice finance. Um, that was one thing. So you needed a steady and reliable partner. And of course, that reliability and steadiness was questioned during
Hmm.
the crisis. Um,
Hmm.
the second is the significant importance of invoice finance in general. I mean, what I learned when you had companies that basically went out of business or were affected, had liquidity issues or slowed down. Um, yes, you saw companies relying on the liquidity of these invoice finance players unable to provide, and that
Hmm.
was a critical moment and realization too of the let's say the positive effect of invoice finance, because you're basically not just looking at the seller, but you're also looking at the seller's customers, the buyers. So having that like additional, let's say, due diligence, that additional strength um,
Hmm.
results in the ability of these players to do more during
Yeah,
times of crisis. I wrote a
yeah.
paper, I remember, and looked at every financial crisis since the Great Depression to see what happened to the industry during those days, dating back over 100 years ago. And after every financial crisis, you saw the industry just explode. And
Yeah.
I won't get into the numerical details, but uh, yeah, it was extremely impressive, and it just again realized the strength and importance that the industry plays during times of crisis. I would say the second was the merger, between FCI and
Okay.
IFG. For me, that
Yeah.
was it was certainly part of my strategic plan. I mean, the industry, you imagine 2000, so that was the first year
Yeah.
that I entered the board at FCI. For the next 15 years, the industry grew from 500 billion to over 2 trillion. And
Mm.
it's very difficult to have an industry have different players, different voices,
Yeah.
talking to governments, talking to regulators. And so I think from that perspective as well, it was very important that we have just one voice for the members as
Hmm.
well, costs as well, having two associations doing pretty much the same thing. You know this, you remember the days, where
Hmm.
we were in essence working alongside IFG. So, like any marriage, you have relatives and friends that are sometimes not in favor or not supportive of such a marriage. It was politics, so to speak, trying
Yeah.
to get people aligned and on board after multiple tries over probably 2 decades, as you remember.
Yeah.
So I would say just that whole process was just extremely challenging.
When I talk to people about your biggest contribution in this space, the first thing they say, it's the relationship and networks you've built across development banks and institutions globally to align on
Mm.
receivables finance or supply chain finance or factoring in its broader sense.
I see, I did mention with the merger that it gave us more access, more visibility to these international organizations, like the World Bank, the UN, and all the development banks. Yeah, yeah, I believe that's correct. For me, the most important initiative besides the merger was the launch by the United Nations, the UNIDROIT, of the factoring model law, to
Yeah.
finally have a law pertaining to invoice finance on its own. You know, the
Yeah.
UNCITRAL developed the law relating to secure transactions in general,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
incorporated receivables. But
Yeah.
you know, for a country that just wanted a law on factoring, or a law pertaining to how to protect the rights of third parties, the ability to assign receivables, you
Yeah.
needed to have a separate legal code, you know, built
Yeah.
into the, you know. So this is the UN, and trust me, Mikhail, that was one of the hardest experiences, because I realized then, yeah, there was so many different views about invoice finance in general, from the industry, from the
Yeah.
players, from these development banks, from that. Yeah, there wasn't a complete unanimous support for it. Trust me,
Yeah.
and so you know, having the World Bank behind it, together with FCI, you know, truthfully, got the thing
Yeah.
off the ground. And so, you know, from that perspective, and you know, we now, you know, have this model law. We also have the IFC World Bank guidelines on the regulatory
Yeah.
reform. So you have
Yeah.
a regulation on factoring and invoice finance. You have as well. The FCI developed a basically a legal study on the 90 plus countries on how invoice finance works from a legal and regulatory perspective. So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
launched all three at my last annual meeting in Morocco in 2023, which was, you know, definitely felt like a really great contribution, honestly.
I have to say, it's pretty amazing how you manage to get all these different stakeholders and parties from all over the world to come together and create some sort of
Yeah.
convergence on where this field needs to go, and setting that foundation. Yeah, that's been your true achievement, is what I believe.
Thank you, Mikhail. That's very, very kind of you to say. And yeah, I mean, honestly, you know, I look back and I'm just so grateful. It was such an amazing, you know, opportunity. You know, I mean, it's you know, in a way, you know, kind of meeting people like yourself, and so many other, let's say, individuals that had such a
Yeah.
vision,
Yeah.
such a, you know, such a unique, let's say, path, and yeah, in a sense, having the capability of unifying and bringing together everybody. You know, yeah, I would say that was
Fun.
probably, yeah, my the fun part of the job.